Hey guys, good morning. It's Wednesday again, and so we're going to talk about SNAP, Survivors of Narcissistic and Abusive Personalities, which is an educational program that we use as a foundation for treatment of survivors of abuse here at Claremont Mental Health. I'm Mandy Friedman, and I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor and a clinically certified domestic violence counselor. And that's why I talk about these things, is because it's what I'm passionate about, and I'm an expert. So here we go. Today we're going to talk about cognitive dissonance. Some of you might have learned about this in a Psychology 101 class, maybe even in high school. It's a basic psychological concept that we were taught back in the beginning of our education about psychology, if that's something that was interesting to you in college. I remember, I think that's the first time I heard about it was in a psych class my freshman year in college. So cognitive dissonance. The simple view of this is that what we know or believe doesn't match what's going on in our world or what's happening in our life, or it doesn't match our behaviors. So I did these fun little visuals for you this morning. All right, so cognitive dissonance. You can see where these different bubbles, we've got thoughts, feelings, beliefs. This is, oh, wrong side. Knowledge, behavior, and instincts. And notice how they're all sort of jumbled up on this paper here. They're jumbled and they're out of whack. Okay? So when you're experiencing cognitive dissonance, it's because your beliefs, your knowledge, your feelings, your instincts, and your behaviors contradict each other, and they don't quite line up. So this can cause stress and also psychological discomfort, mental discomfort, emotional discomfort. But on a long term, if you were the target of abuse for years of your life, then you're going to have lived in a constant state of cognitive dissonance. And this is something that targets of abuse deal with. But then survivors of abuse, after the abuse is over, we're still left trying to solve this, okay? So what does cognitive dissonance feel like? Well, like I said, it's stress, anxiety. It might feel like anger. You feel trapped, perhaps, but overall, it will surface in what looks like anxiety or depression, or maybe even some behavioral problems. Well, when you hold two opposing views, so here's an example of cognitive dissonance, is when you believe two different things that are opposite, okay? So one of those would be, an example would be, my mother loves me. I believe that my mother loves me. But also, my mother beats me, and love is not getting beat, right? Okay, so beating someone, I believe and I know, is not how you show love, right? I know that, I believe that to be true. But I also believe that my mother loves me, but my mother also beats me. You see what I mean? It contradicts. You wind up having to rationalize or come up with a story that you tell yourself to make it okay. Well, mom loves me, and yeah, she does beat me, but it's because that's how she was raised, or because she works so hard, she's stressed out, or because I deserved the beating. I'm the one that caused the problem, and so, it was my fault. So we tell ourselves stories to sort of solve the cognitive dissonance and make it okay, right? Another example of cognitive dissonance would be when your knowledge doesn't match your behavior. Okay, so when your knowledge doesn't match your behavior, that would be something like you have type 2 diabetes, the doctor has told you that you've got to get a hold of your diet and start on insulin, or you're going to have irreversible medical issues coming on as a result of not taking care of yourself, right? And so we know that by not taking care of ourselves, that we're going to wind up harming ourselves, and yet we don't take care of ourselves. Or how about if you're addicted? I mean, anyone, I think it's funny when people lecture people that smoke, like that they don't know it's going to kill them and give them cancer. Everyone knows that, right? Everyone knows that smoking is bad. I'm pretty sure that's just common knowledge. And yet someone will keep smoking. Just this morning, as a matter of fact, I made a mental note. I saw someone with oxygen, with the oxygen tube on, and also smoking at the same time, right? Okay, so what happens with that is when our behaviors don't match our knowledge, then we have to solve it in our head by rationalizing. So maybe that person says, well, I'm going to die anyway, might as well go out doing what I love. And I like to smoke, so screw it, whatever the story is that they tell themselves to make it line up somehow and make it okay. So when beliefs are not in line with your behaviors or with your social environment, so let's say you're new to an area, you're trying to find a new church, and in your belief system, being Christian means that you accept everyone, that's your version of Christianity, that you wholeheartedly embrace everyone. Well, then, you go to a church and you're hearing messages that talk about how some people are okay, but other people are not okay. Well, how are we going to worship there when our beliefs don't really match up with the environment where we're about to be kind of vulnerable? Because where we worship, where we are spiritual, we're showing our vulnerable selves. So in order to be vulnerable, you're opening yourself up to an environment that might be harmful if it doesn't match what you believe. But if you force yourself, let's say you're a kid, let's say you're a teenager and your parents are dragging you to church, you don't have a choice, and you're in that environment, and you wonder why you hate it. Well, it's because it doesn't line up, in some way, shape, or form. Perhaps, your workplace, people are backstabbing. It's a high pressure, throw you under the bus type situation, but you're someone who likes to connect through emotional, who likes to build relationships with emotional connection. So I have several clients that are very, very empathetic. They're empaths. They love everyone. They want everyone to feel good about themselves. And in the workplace, they navigate using that, that they're just their vulnerable, emotional self, trying to make genuine relationships in a workplace where perhaps no one else is operating that way, right? And now this person has low self-esteem, is needy, needing affirmation all the time, and it's because their mode of interacting, their beliefs about human relationships and interpersonal relationships doesn't match the environment where they are. So I think I've hammered it home pretty well, right? So when we have these things and they're not lining up, it means that we're not living authentically. So in recovery from abuse, and recovery from a lot of different things actually, we're working to create a life that actually supports our beliefs, that matches our thought life, our emotional life, the behaviors, the environments, that they start to line up and things start to make more sense, okay? When you're living authentically as best you can. Some of us don't have a choice, right? If you work in a place where it's toxic, you can't just change your job, right? Some things we don't have control over, but some things we do. And the things that we do, we want for it to represent and embody the principles, the beliefs, the attitudes, and the way of life that we believe in and that we want to create for ourselves. So let's think about that. If I believe, which I do, that being in a toxic, abusive, and harsh environment can be harmful to me as an individual because of things that I've been through, maybe there's certain types of settings where I'm just not going to do well there, right? Well, that means that maybe I'm not going to go there anymore. It means that maybe the friends that I make aren't, my new friends aren't people that hang out in places like that, right? So I'm not going to associate with people that are going to be inviting me to go to places where I'm not going to do well or I'm putting myself at risk, right? So if someone who's in recovery, if you have a best friend who is married to an abuser and you are in recovery from abuse, that's going to be super triggering and possibly toxic for you, right? And if you don't want abuse in your life, sometimes that means in any capacity, meaning your mom's husband or your best friend's boyfriend, right? Living authentically means that we make hard decisions sometimes about what we allow in our inner circle and in our bubble that we're building. So when we identify, you know what, I truly believe that I am broken. Okay, so this can happen in a different direction, and then I'm going to wrap it up. So let's say you're in recovery, but you're not to the part yet where you're loving yourself. And you still believe that you are innately broken, that you're flawed, and that you're a bad person. Well, in recovery, good things will start happening to you. And if you believe that you don't deserve them, and yet they're manifesting, it makes you feel uncomfortable, right? That's when we're like, oh, no, don't hug me. Or someone pays you a compliment and you're like, or you have the other shoe syndrome, like, when's the other shoe going to drop? Or you have imposter syndrome, like, if they really knew me, they would not like me. Or there's no way I'm actually qualified for this job. They must have overlooked something and I got lucky, right? So cognitive dissonance can happen in recovery as your good, new, healthy life starts to develop and manifest and come to be true. You're still, because you believe, right? You believe that you're not a good person and you don't deserve it, then the good things are going to make you feel uncomfortable. So that's how cognitive dissonance works. And again, that's one of our goals in recovery, is to solve cognitive dissonance and live authentically, which means that our attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, instincts, and our thought life, they generally all line up. And we're living a life that exemplifies or demonstrates our belief system through our behaviors and how we live. So if I believe that it's important to be healthy, then that means that I'm going to actually take active steps, behaviors, to become healthy by going to do things, right? There's a behavior. A lot of times we think we want to wait until we feel like doing something, or we're going to wait for a sign, or going to wait for someone to drag us along to make healthy changes. But unfortunately, the truth is that the behaviors have to come first. The actions have to come first. You have to actually make the change in what you're doing. And then the rest of the things start to line up. So one of the things might be, I'm going to stop interacting with this person because I know they're toxic. I still love them. I wish them well, and I will miss them and grieve them, but I'm going to take this step. I'm going to have a behavior, right? I'm going to take an action, and I'm going to remove this toxic presence from my life, even though the rest of it hasn't lined up yet, right? Then you have that behavior, you take the action, remove the toxic presence, and then guess what? All of a sudden, these things start to line up, and now you're living authentically and feeling a lot better. Okay. I hope you guys have a really great day, and if you have any ideas for topics, please let me know, because sometimes I can't come up with one, so I need help. You guys send me a private message or in the notes if there's anything you're curious about or ideas you have for future videos. Please submit those to me. And have a good day. Bye-bye.